Welcome to CodeSwami. So we printed Hello World for our first program, but that simply isn't enough. So today we will discuss identifiers, variables, and data types. This lecture will be all theory, but it is very important in order to understand the upcoming lectures. Starting with identifiers, you can get the meaning by reading the name carefully enough. An identifier is something that helps us to identify things. So like in the previous video, we named our class Hello World. So here, Hello World is the identifier. Any name we give to a class, a method, object, or variables is an identifier. And this is pretty much all about identifiers. So coming to variables, variable as the name suggests simply means something that can vary. That means it has no fixed value and can vary accordingly. It's not as complicated as it sounds. So in simpler terms, variable is a name, let's say num. So num is the name of my variable. By declaring a variable num, we reserved some memory and named it num so we can add any value we like to it and change it later as we wish. In Java, variables can be named anything except any of the reserved keywords like class, static, public, or anything like that. Basically, anything that is the part of grammar or structure of this language cannot be used as a variable name. The name can only include alphabets, numbers, an underscore, or a dollar sign. No other special characters are allowed, and the name cannot start with an underscore or a dollar sign. So, a quick question now tell me which of these are legal variable names and which are not. Done? Cool. So, A is a legal variable name. It starts with an alphabet, has numbers, but that's okay, and does not have any special character. B, on the other hand, is not a legal variable name as it starts with an underscore. C as well is not a legal variable name. It contains at the rate, which is not allowed in a variable name. So what about D? In fact, D is very much legal. Underscores are allowed in between the name, but not in the beginning of the name. Remember that. So I hope by now you know how to name a variable in Java, and I'll tell you how to use them in the very next lecture. So coming to data types are simply the type of data that we use. Now please pause the video, grab a notebook and write as I go. Got it? Cool. So data types are divided into two categories, primitive data types and non-primitive data types. Primitive data types are the basic ones. That means these are the part of the structure of this language. So primitive data types are further categorized into two parts, bool type and numerical type. Bool type holds Boolean values, that is, binary values, either true or false. Numerical type is further categorized into two parts, char type and integral type. So char type is simply characters. It holds values like A, B, X, or Y, basically any single character value. And integral type is also categorized into two parts, integers and floating point. So integers are simple numeric values that are whole numbers or natural numbers such as 10, 20, 11, 12, 13, anything. Examples of these data types are int, short, byte, etc. that we will cover in the very next lecture. So if you try to put any fractional values like 3.14, 10.2, 11.3, anything like that in here, you will get an error. So to use these type of values in our code, we use floating point data types. These data types are float and double, and I will also cover that in the very next lecture. So that's all about primitive data types. What about non-primitive data types? Non-primitive data types are those which are not a basic part, but actually derived data types, such as a string that is simply a collection of characters, or in simple words, a sentence, or arrays that we will cover later. So today my main motive was to make you familiar with identifiers, the naming conventions in Java, and the data types. In the next lecture, we will cover primitive data types and we'll try to use them in our code. If you like the lecture, do give me a thumbs up and do consider subscribing. That way you will know whenever I upload a new lecture. I will also be linking down the PDF version of this lecture, so feel free to download that from the description below. I will be available on my Instagram handle, that is @CodeSwami. So in case you have any questions and queries, hit me up on Instagram and I'll answer your questions. Thank you for watching the lecture. I am Sri Ramtirth Goswami and I'll see you in the next one.